It has now been almost 6 months since the horrible shooting in my state of Connecticut, in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, where 26 and 7-year-olds lost their lives and another 6 adults who were protecting them perished as well. We all believed that we were going to do something about it here on the floor of the Senate. We thought that we were going to come to our senses and finally realize that it is in part the laws of this nation that allow for this kind of senseless killing, whether it be in mass numbers in places like Sandy Hook or Aurora or Tucson, or in your state, Madam President, the Sikh temple, or in just the everyday average gun violence that has become background noise to this nation. It is not just about bad people doing bad things. It is also about the laws of this nation that have allowed for this to happen, because we don't have background checks on every gun purchase, so the criminals do get guns. We still allow for dangerous military-style weapons like the AR-15 and 100-round drums of ammunition to be carried on the streets of this country. We don't even have a federal law saying that it's illegal to traffic in guns, taking them out of gun shows and gun stores and then going out and selling them on the streets as straw purchasers to people who shouldn't have bought them in the first place. We had 55 votes in the Senate to do that, but we didn't have 60 votes, which is these days the law of the land here. And so, Madam President, I've promised every week to come down here and do something rather simple, which is to tell the stories of the dozens of people every single day who are killed by guns, because it's really their stories that will eventually move this place to action. I know that this place has enough empathy, enough compassion to not be so callous for month after month to do nothing about today, the 4,243 people who have died in this country since Newtown at the hands of gun violence. Let me tell you that number again. Since the massacre at Sandy Hook, when 28 people died, including the gunman and his mother, 4,243 people have died due to gun violence. And so I want to spend the next couple minutes before we get back to debate on these nominations just telling you the stories of a few of these people. On May 15th, 2013, just about a week ago, 5 different people were shot in Detroit. Halfway through May, there have been 73 shootings in Detroit, Michigan. 10 people have been killed. 8 of the shooting victims were 17 years old or younger. On that day, May 15th, 5 people were shot after a 24-year-old man opened fire after a pretty simple verbal altercation on the street. What happened, apparently, was that one parent of one child told the other kids to go home for some reason. Something had happened at their house. That youth returned to the house with some of his family members, including the 24-year-old man who got so upset over this simple altercation about a mom asking some kids to leave her house that he opened fire, killing Almonder Walls and wounding the others. It was a pretty bloody 24-hour period in Detroit where 12 people were shot on that day from 6 a.m. on Wednesday until 6 a.m. on Thursday. 73 shootings halfway through May in one city alone. On May 15th, as well, Newark police said that an 18-year-old high school student, a senior, at Wequahic High School in Newark, New Jersey, was killed. He signed himself out of school after he wasn't feeling well. He was shot. Councilman Ras Baraka, who is also the principal of another high school, he said, "We are outgunned and outmanned here on the streets." There are so many guns on the street of Newark that principals and law enforcement feel outgunned and outmanned. Of the young student who was killed, his friends said he was a good kid. When he was little, we used to play pool, and video games around here. In Bridgeport, Connecticut, just before sunrise on Mother's Day, police found 22-year-old Robert Rivera dead in his car from perhaps a dozen bullet wounds. He was one in a million, a friend said. No one will ever be like him. Chino, his nickname was. He was a good kid. His friend said, the good die young here. 22 years old, killed in a spray of bullets in his car in Bridgeport, Connecticut. These are the ones that we don't hear that much about because they're in the local papers. But we know that there are also these mass killings as well. And Madam President, I just want to tell you, before I give back the floor, the stories of a handful of victims in your state who were killed at a Sikh temple when someone walked in August 2012 and opened up fire. Because people should know who these victims are as well. It's the victims of everyday gun violence, but we have had a string of mass shootings in this country, which is not going to end until we do something about it. Paramjit Kaur lived for her children. She spent 11 hours a day, 6 days a week, in production at a medical devices firm in order to provide for her children. She was praying inside the temple when she learned of the active shooter outside the temple, and instead of being afraid, she showed great courage, bowed down, and prayed one last time before she was shot. Satwant Singh was the founder and the president of that Sikh temple. He worked 18 hours a day at his family's gas station to provide for his family. His hard work as a small businessman paid off, and he acquired 8 stations by the end of his career. His attempts to thwart the gunman with a small, dull knife gave a group of women, including his mother, the chance to escape. Suveg Singh Katra is a former dairy farmer in northern India, and she came to the United States for a better life. He came to the States for a better life. He was a humble and loving man who was a constant presence at that temple. And he was a man of habit. He'd wake up every morning at 4:30, watch the news and a live broadcast from India, and engage in readings from the Holy Book. He died at age 84. Prakash Singh was a pious man, but with a great sense of humor. He actually stayed in the priest quarters in the temple, and he was really excited by the fact that he was about to, for the first time, get an apartment outside of the temple. They were due to move into their new home at the end of August, just a few weeks after he was killed. And then the 2 brothers, Ranjit and Sita Singh, were brothers and Sikh priests who left their families behind to move to Oak Creek for a better life. Ranjit was the more outgoing of the 2. His responsibility was to take care of every visitor who came through those doors, but his younger brother, Sita, was just as fun-loving and would wake up every morning at 5 a.m. to read the Sikh Holy Book. His specialty was making sure that everybody who walked into that temple had enough to eat. All perished at the shooting in the Sikh temple. These things are going to happen again, Madam President. There's going to be another mass atrocity. There are going to continue to be these shootings in Detroit and Bridgeport and Newark if we don't do something about it on this floor. I know we have important business, whether it be the Farm Bill this week or our hopeful attempt at passing immigration reform. But as soon as that is done, hopefully we will get to come back to this issue of gun violence. Because if we don't, these everyday urban stories will mount, and there will be another mass shooting somewhere across this country. Thank you, Madam President. I now yield back the floor.